time now for business news with Kim Savage. Hey Kim, the Climate Change Committee, they think the government should focus on electric vehicles rather than focusing on getting to 100% renewable electricity target. So, what does the electricity sector think of that?
Breathing a sigh of relief, I think it's safe to say. So, of course, we had this report out from that interim Climate Change Committee, and there was the report out on the emission side of things, which, of course, affects farmers and the like. And then there was this report into the electricity sector and the future of it and accelerating electrification. So, things like electric vehicles and things. The other thing that this report focused on also was process heat too, which was looking at the industrial heating processes. So, say a dairy company, for example, changing milk powder into liquid and so on, and using heating that's driven by fossil fuels. And so what this report has come out and said is that it'd actually be better if the government focused on those things, the electric vehicles, getting more of those cars on the road, and also focusing on moving some of those heating processes away from fossil fuels and into electrification. And it said it's better off making those a priority than focusing on that target of 100% renewable electricity by 2035. My gosh, that's a mouthful. What the report did say is that we're already on track to reach about 97% by that time frame anyway. So the industry itself, the sort of electricity sector, is doing pretty well in that regard, but that it's not necessarily the way to achieve the targets that the government wants to achieve by focusing solely on that goal. The government came out and said that it won't die, and to quote the Energy Minister Megan Woods, won't die in a ditch over a couple of percent. So it is happy to then take the focus and look at some of these other things and perhaps, not get too upset about maybe a couple of percent perhaps not reaching that goal. So we talked today to Mercury, one of the major players in that electricity generation and retail space, said that they welcomed this very pragmatic approach from the government, not being wedded to that target necessarily at this stage, and said that there will be a significant investment required. The main problem with reaching that 100% target is you have these things called hydro dry years, which is something unique to New Zealand. Of course, you've got your hydro storage lakes, and if you end up with a year where you don't get a lot of rain, then of course that impacts on the electricity that can be generated from that. So that is one of the gaps here in actually achieving that goal as identified by the report, and it's something the industry has been talking about for a long time. So they're saying that yes, that investment in dealing with that problem will come, and essentially it means you need larger or more storage lakes to deal with that problem. Yes, that investment will come, but it will come in time, and perhaps from Mercury's point of view, being obsessed with a time frame, getting this achieved 100% by 2035 is not necessarily the best way to handle it.
Okay, let's move on to the big social media companies. Now, they've fronted up to US lawmakers. What are they saying?
Well, I have to say the response that they got there at committees over in Washington were not particularly complimentary. So Facebook was obviously the main one there that was appearing, actually had to defend its launch of its digital coin, which is the cryptocurrency Libra, which it announced last month that it was going to introduce next year. So some of the words that were bandied about, delusional and crazy from some senators there, said that Facebook's demonstrated through scandals that it doesn't deserve our trust, and that would be crazy to give them the chance to let them experiment with people's bank accounts too. So not the greatest reception for Facebook there, talking to US lawmakers. So the fear here that they have is the unknown, really. Since that announcement last month, regulators and governments around the world have been mulling this over and thinking, what would a digital cryptocurrency on the scale that Facebook is talking about? This is an organisation with 2.38 billion users, and if all of those people were to adopt this currency, could this then end up upending the financial system? There is a risk here, I guess, because this Libra currency could avoid the banking system altogether, and then that becomes a risk then to government-backed currencies. So it takes some of the control out of the hands of the regulators and puts that control potentially in Facebook or in Facebook's organisation that's going to be running this currency. So the fear or concern that some of these US lawmakers have is around how is Facebook going to protect consumers, not only their data, but also their money, essentially, too? How are they going to deal with the anti-money laundering side of things? So, protecting the system from being used by criminals to launder their money. Also, it seems apparent here from these US lawmakers in the reception they gave Facebook is that there is a certain amount of irritation there that perhaps they weren't consulted or there was no consultation with any regulators anywhere before Facebook actually launched this last month. Facebook has said it is going to engage on this and it is not going to go forward and present anything final until it has had those conversations. So it's apparent there's still a bit of convincing to do in Washington and probably certainly other parts of the world too.
Kim, shall we take a quick twirl around the markets before you head off?
Yes, indeed. Bit of a flat finish for our own NZX Top 50 Index, just 4 points up at 10,655. And taking a look at the currency, the New Zealand dollar at 67 US cents and 95.7 Australian. Lisa.
Thanks, Kim. That's Kim Savage joining us from our Wellington studio for Your Business today.